Om. Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्. Jai Gurudev. So yesterday we saw this, one of the most important verses. Swadharme nidhanam shreyaha paradharmo bhayavaha. So we'll do this one more time. We spoke about spontaneous action, how an ethical person is not necessarily a karma yogi. Yeah. So verse number 35, chapter 3. Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha paradharmat swanushtitat swadharme nidhanam shreyaha paradharmo bhayavaha. So, su anushtitat paradharmat, as compared to the well-performed dharma of another, Vigunaha, imperfect, Swadharmaha, one's own dharma, Shreyan, better, Swadharme, in one's own dharma, Nidhanam, death, Shreyaha is better, Paradharmaha, the dharma of another, Bhayavaha is fraught with fear. So, su anushtitat paradharmat, Vigunaha, Swadharmaha, Shreyan, Swadharme, Nidhanam Shreyaha Paradharmaha Bhayavaha. Better is one's own imperfectly performed dharma than the well-performed dharma of another. Death in one's own dharma is better. The dharma of another is fraught with fear. We have seen that with reference to sense objects, forms, sounds, smells, tastes, etc., certain objects are looked upon as desirable while others are not. That means every sense object comes with the Raga Dvesha tag. These likes and dislikes arise in your mind in the form of various types of wants for which you are not responsible. It is here that the Shastra comes in. So who is responsible for these various types of wants? the Swabhava, Prakriti. And this is ultimately you have put a blueprint for it. But then in this Janma, some of them have been accumulated over lifetime. So therefore, you are not responsible. It is here that the Shastra comes in. Wherever there is doership and enjoyership centered on free will, wherever free will has access, the Shastra has its sphere of influence. The Shastra deals with dharma and adharma, right and wrong, nitya, satya, and mithya, the real and the unreal. All these are dependent on viveka, vichara, discriminative inquiry for the person who is free. Therefore, the Shastra is not deemed to be useless simply because the previous verse declared that each person behaves according to his or her own nature, which cannot be controlled. This Prakriti, one's nature, is only with reference to the appearance of raga dveshas in the form of various thoughts arising in your mind. It is true that your svabhava, your nature, is responsible for the appearance of these raga dveshas, but whether you go along with them depends entirely upon you. There are always certain governing factors for any course of action. What is proper, what is useful to you, what is feasible, all determine which raga, which like you choose to follow or fulfill. Certain norms of pragmatism and ethics, dharma and adharma, also have to be taken into account. So it's not that for a person who's a viveki, he would not just act upon any thought that arises, any thought of a raga or a dvesha. So there is viveka and vichara, and then dharma and adharma as to what is to be, which thought is to be acted upon. An ethical person need not necessarily be a karma yogi. So Krishna's earlier verse is not a contradiction. It is true that Swabhava and Prakriti are the reason behind the various thoughts related to raga dveshas that happen in the mind. But you being given a free will, you are the deciding factor, which thought to act upon. So an ethical person need not necessarily be a karma yogi. If there is an awareness of Ishvara in your choice of action, it is karma yoga. Until then, it is simply the choice of a mature person. So we have to underline this. If there is an awareness of Ishvara in your choice of action, it is karma yoga. Until then, it is simply the choice of a mature person. A mature person is one who has ethics, for which one need not have religion. Bertrand Russell, for example, wrote a book called Why I Am Not a Christian. He never claimed to have any religious leanings and even wrote in so many words that he had nothing to do with such matters. At the same time, this man was a clean person and the first to raise his voice against the proliferation of nuclear weapons. He was a man of great ethics without having any religion. So he would remain as just an ethical person. Any thinking person understands ethics. Everyone knows what others should and should not do to him or her. Everyone also knows that others expect the same in return. Thus, Ethics are born of common sense, not of religion, and can be understood more clearly and assimilated if the person has a certain degree of maturity. One's own experiences in life and understanding are enough to understand what is proper and improper. Thus, no one needs religious scriptures or mandates in order to be an ethical person. All these dharma are all universal values. They're common sense. No one needs to tell us that we should not steal from another or we should not hurt another. Whatever you wish others to do to you / not do to you, you would not do to others. So that is very common. I mean, that's common sense. That does not require scriptures to come and tell you. However, the religious scriptures of the world add something to ethical values. And what is that? They say that if you perform an improper action, you cannot get away with it. You will have to pay for it later. So what the scriptures bring in is the adrishta phala. This is where the concepts of punya and papa, merit and demerit, come in. According to the karma performed, there is a certain result that comes to you. It is like a ticket you get from a parking violation, which is not going to be as severe as a ticket from a speeding offense. So every karma has its own measure of adrishta phala. If it's a very severe bad karma that is very in greater intensity, and the adrishta phala also from that will be that severe. Similarly, according to the karma performed, there is a result called adrishta phala, punya and papa. That there is such a result as adrishta phala is additional information gleaned from the scriptures. But for merely understanding what is ethical and unethical, religion is not required. So therefore, an ethical person need not have religion to be ethical. But what does religion bring in? It brings in the flavor of adrishta phala. Thus, a person can be ethical without being a karma yogi. He or she becomes a karma yogi only when there is an appreciation on the part of the person that Ishvara is the giver of the results of action, karma phala data. A karma yogi is a bhakta, a devotee, one who does not look upon one's possessions as one's own. For such a person, a physical body is given. The body itself is prasada. Mind is given. Mind is prasada. The world is given. The world is prasada. Opportunities are given. Resources are given. Skills are given. Time is given. Place is given. Everything is given. That beautiful song, Har Saans Meri, Puja Tumhari, Har Pal Mera, Prasad Tera. So even every moment you get to live is like a prasada. So automatically it brings in that reverence, reverence, that sanctity. Only when one appreciates the given and also the giver behind the given is there karma yoga. Ethically, therefore, one can be clean. But this in itself is not karma yoga, all of which has been pointed out. If what is to be done by you at this time and place and what you want to do. So this is one aspect of understanding karma yoga, right? So karma yogi is necessarily a religious person. Why religious? Because he believes that everything is given by whom? By the karma phaladata, by Ishvara. And he's not just living life ethically like a mature person. No doubt he's a mature person. But in addition, he also has this other flavor, which is recognizing Ishvara. So the next one is, if what is to be done by you at this time and place and what you want to do happen to concur, then your action is spontaneous and no thinking is required. Also, when what is not to be done is something that you do not want to do, avoidance or withdrawal from such an action is spontaneous. Even if someone asks you to do it, your no is spontaneous because you do not have any such inclination, and also the action is not to be done. So, this is if your ragas and dveshas are in line with what is to be done, then there is no that amounts to spontaneous action. For example, we if you want, there's a person who is just falling down, maybe he's walking on the road and he's about to fall down, you spontaneously go there and help him. That becomes a spontaneous action. Whereas you, by your nature, you dislike, for instance, addictions, smoking, drinking. Someone offers you, you say no. What you don't want to do and what you should not be doing concur. It is one and the same. As against a person who is a smoker. A smoker, his his raga and dvesha are not in line with what should not be done. Smoking is injurious to health, should not be done. But is his dvesha according to that? No, it's turned to the opposite side. It's turned to a raga. So it's not in line with what is not to be done. So that does not become a spontaneous action. He's using his free will there he's choosing to smoke. So that does not become a spontaneous action. Spontaneous action. Thus, with reference to certain ragas and dveshas, there is spontaneity because you are in harmony with dharma. Because your samskaras, whatever you have, your vasanas, are in harmony with dharma. That is why it is important to develop good samskaras from the beginning. You do not rub up against anything. The laws are not being rubbed against. In fact, you are in harmony with the whole setup. But if your raga dveshas do not conform to right and wrong, dharma and adharma, there is a rub. This is why Lord Krishna also said here, death in your own dharma is better. The dharma of another is fraught with fear. Swadharme nidhanam shreyaha paradharmo bhayavaha. But here the doubt then comes. Swadharme nidhanam. Dharma and adharma are universal, right? So dharma, how does one decide what is one's swadharma? So that is what we'll see next. The choice you have is only with reference to what you are going to do. You have no choice whatsoever about what happens in your head. Thoughts just happen and you have no control over them. But Whether you go along with them or not is definitely subject to choice. Swadharma means what is to be done by oneself, one's own dharma. Dharma meaning karma here. So, Swadharma means swakarma. Thoughts just happen. You'd have no control over the thoughts in your mind. But what do you have control over is with reference to what you're going to do, which thought you will act upon. In a society where the duties are very well spelt out, each person knows exactly what is expected of him or her. In the Vedic culture, for example, each of the four groups of people, Varnas, had certain duties which were very clearly defined. For a person of a given Varna who is a student, there are certain duties. Then, as a householder or married person, he or she has a different set of duties. So too, for a Vanaprastha, one who is preparing for a life of renunciation. So the different ashramas, different varnas. So what are the different what were the different varnas? Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Sudra. These were the different varnas, and depending upon the time of their life, you had four other varnas, which is brahmacharya, va, ashramas, brahmacharya, grahastha, vanaprastha and sannyasa. Although such clearly defined systems no longer operate in the world, one thing is clear. In any given situation, there is a certain response required on your part in terms of action, and this becomes your duty. You should underline this. So, not going by the varnas and ashramas, because that has become a little, um, they no longer operate in that tight compartments. It's become all a little fluid right now. So, what is to be done is, one thing is clear: in any given situation, there is a certain response required on your part in terms of action, and this becomes your duty. Duty is not something that you have to be told about by someone, really speaking. It becomes evident as you look at the situation that you are in and understand it as it is. In this way, what is to be done becomes obvious to you. In other, in other words, this is our responsibility. And the responsibility varies with the situations we are in. So you rise to the occasion and take on that responsibility. No one needs to give you it, give you responsibility. You take it up yourself. If you do not understand the situation you find yourself in, you can always seek the help of someone in order to understand what your duty is in terms of what should and should not be done. Someone who is more informed, who has more experience, or who is more capable and placed in such a way that he is capable, that he is able to spell out your duties, can do this for you. So if you are not able to understand the situation and what your role is, then you can seek help from someone who's more informed. The concept of swadharma needs to be seen also in the spirit of this verse. In terms of one's own karma, swadharma, what is to be done is to be done, even if one is destroyed in the process. Doing one's own karma is far better than doing the karma of another person, meaning that it is useless to want to do what someone else is doing. Do only what you have to do. I will repeat this para again. The concept of swadharma needs to be seen also in the spirit of this verse. In terms of one's own karma, swadharma, what is to be done, even if one is destroyed in the process. Doing one's own karma is far better than doing the karma of another person. Meaning that it is useless to want to do what someone else is doing. Do only what you have to do. So, which means what? Everybody has their own sphere of swakarma, swadharma and swakarma. In this whole universe, in order for the universe to run, earlier in the earlier verses, we saw that how the universe is set into motion and everybody has their roles and responsibilities. And parasparam bhavai yajna shishtamrita bhujo yanti brahma sanatanam. And then parasparam bhavayantah. So there is interdependence in this universe. Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyad anna sambhavah अन्नात् भवन्ति भूतानि पर्जन्यादन्न संभवः. यज्ञात् भवति पर्जन्यो यज्ञः कर्म समुद्भवः. कर्म ब्रह्मोद्भवं विद्धि ब्रह्माक्षर समुद्भवम्. तस्मात् सर्वगतं ब्रह्म नित्यं यज्ञे प्रतिष्ठितम्. So very beautifully, the whole process of how the universe and this karma as a yajna is born is spelled out earlier in chapter 3, where from Brahma, from Akshara, the primordial one, the creator Brahma sets forth, and from him he sets forth the whole universe as a yajna. And there is this interdependence between one and the other. Like rain, there is food grains because of rain. And the rain is because of yajna again. When people propitiate, when the water from the oceans becomes water vapor. So all this is inbuilt in the system. So in this, each one's role becomes one's swakarma or swadharma. So that concept, so doing one's own karma is far better than doing the karma of another person. So it is meaningless to want to do what someone else is doing. Do only what you have to do. Suppose the goalkeeper in a soccer game decides to run like the other players do, because the ball never seems to come to him anyway. It would be a disaster. In other words, if he decides to do the job of the other players, even though it is his job to stand between the posts, it would not work. What is being said here is that if standing between the posts is your job, you had better do it. If the ball does not come to you, it means the other team is not scoring goals. And if it comes too often, you can enjoy the action. It is not as though you are always going to be just standing there. Sometimes there will be some action to perform. Just because the other players run does not mean that you should run. Similarly, the job of a bolt in a piece of machinery is to sit tight. But suppose the bolt is teased by the piston that says, "Why aren't you doing any action? I am the only one doing anything here. All you are doing is sitting there tightly. Why don't you do something?" Hearing this once or twice, the bolt may simply say, "This fellow is just blabbering. My job is to sit tight. That's how my maker, the manufacturer, made me. Therefore, let me ignore what the piston is saying." But eventually, the bolt may think, "Why should I not also move? I think the piston is actually making some sense. After all, I do sit tightly all the time while he keeps going. Should I not also do something? Then he may become my friend. I'm also part of the machinery. Why shouldn't I do anything?" Having decided thus, the bolt has to struggle to move because it has been sitting so tightly for a long time. It tries to move one way and cannot. Then it tries to move the other way and begins to shift. Happily, it says, "I'm also doing now. I'm also doing now. I'm also doing now. I'm also doing now." And it keeps moving on the other direction. Whereupon the bolt falls to the floor, to the ground. Before any time at all, the piston also falls out, and the entire mechanism comes to a standstill, all because of one bolt wanting to do someone else's job. So, if we extrapolate this into the universe, into the creation, each one of us is given a set of responsibilities or is cut out for certain things, is meant to do certain things. Identifying that is our swakarma. Can any job be said to be really better than another? Which is better for the bolt, sitting tightly or moving? Jobs differ. One fellow's job is to sit tightly. Another job is to move. One is not to do the job of the other person in the overall scheme of things. Because someone is working hard on a construction site does not mean that someone else has to do the same. Working hard is not the issue. What is to be understood is that there are different types of work. Sitting tight is also difficult work because even though there is a tendency to move, you should not move. If, for example, you are an orderly in an intensive care unit, orderly is the security guard sitting in the intensive care unit. Similarly, each one, so he's supposed to sit there, sit at the entrance and guard the entrance. So one cannot say, "Oh, he's just sitting and doing nothing." Look at the doctor in the ICU, he's moving from one bed to the other. Look at the nurse, she's so busy giving medicines. So if the security guard also thinks, "Oh, I'm just sitting here, I'm not doing anything. I also will need to, um, be active and move around and do something productive," thinking that what the others are doing is productive, what he's doing is nothing, then he's totally mistaken because he will end up doing paradharma. And paradharma, no matter how perfectly done, is worse than your own karma, your own swadharma not done properly. So swadharme nidhanam shreyaha paradharmo bhayavaha. You see this problem elsewhere. Similarly, each one has his or her own duty to perform in a given situation, and that duty is only to be done by the person whose duty it is. It is better to die guarding your post than to do something else just because it is more convenient, more remunerative, more likable, and so on. This does not work at all. So we can have a lot of discussion here with respect to whether women should see, in the earlier days, women were supposed to be taking care of the household, homemakers. And it was the man's duty to go out and fend for the family. But these days, the whole thing has changed. Both are needing to work, or both are working. So, what is actually happening to the family structure? So, is this the way forward? If this is the way forward, then how should each one alter their sense of duty, be it at home, be it at work? So now we're not in tight silos like only the women has to cook. It both will have to chip in. You see this problem everywhere in today's society. If you have monetary satisfaction, you may not have job satisfaction. And you have job satisfaction, you may not have monetary satisfaction. You may love your job, but you cannot own even a small house. Paying rent is also a problem, so that you find yourself still living in a one room apartment. If you have job satisfaction, but such satisfaction does not produce the money you need, what kind of job satisfaction is this? A man who is in this situation usually becomes more practical when he marries. He gives up the job he loves and takes another. In terms of money, it's a better job, but now he's sitting in front of a computer all day long. The additional money providing him with no job satisfaction whatsoever. So, one thing is to do what is to be done and not what is more convenient or more remunerative or more likable. What is to be done, and that is your commitment, and not what is convenient. Swadharma and satisfaction. When we see someone else doing something that seems to be making the person happy, we want to do it too. But Swadharma does not work that way. In any given situation, in any given position, whatever is to be done by you, whatever that is appropriate for you, that alone is your karma, your dharma. This does not mean that you should not switch jobs. Both money and job satisfaction are important, but a number of other factors must be taken into account. So we repeat this para. So adharma and satisfaction. So when we see someone else doing something that seems to be making the person happy, we want to do it too. But Swadharma does not work that way. In any given situation, in any given position, whatever is to be done by you, whatever that is appropriate for you, that alone is your karma, your dharma. This does not mean that you should not switch jobs. Both money and job satisfaction are important, but a number of factors must be taken into account. If you are an artist, try to make money with your art. Produce something that will make money, something that is good. In this way, you will have job satisfaction and money also. This is the intelligent way to live. Otherwise, you will have neither money nor satisfaction. What kind of job is it, after all, that does not produce money? How can there be any real satisfaction in such a job? Your art will definitely be affected because being Without the essentials of life that money provides, you will often be disgruntled. Your paintings will be angry paintings. The colors themselves will reflect your inner life. Of course, there are people who will like such paintings because they too are angry. So, you may even sell some of them. In the verse under discussion, Krishna also said that the duty of another is definitely fraught with fear, bhayavaha, when you take it as your own. This being the case, it is better to do one's own duty, to do whatever is proper and appropriate, even if it amounts to death, than to do someone else's duty. In this way, you will have the satisfaction of knowing that, at least until your death, you did what you had to do.
Jai.
Yeah.
Gurudev, is so practical. He advises, the youngsters, don't do passion, okay, just don't do only that you can make it a hobby, he says. You have to live practically, whatever you have to do, and then all your passions make it into hobby, not mainstream. So, Jai Gurudev.
Yeah. See, that's the most ideal thing. If your passion becomes your source of living, that is the best. But life is such that it may not always be the same, right? So both money and job satisfaction are important. So you will have to decide at that given point what is the best option for you, and then you go ahead with that. But just because um, someone else is earning more, you do not switch your. So that is the whole point here, no? So it's better to do one's own duty, to do whatever is proper and appropriate, even if it amounts to death, than to do someone else's duty. In this way, you will have the satisfaction of knowing that at least until your death, you did what you had to do. Also, if you neglect your own duty and do something else, you will be dying every day of your lifetime. Very powerful statement. If you neglect your own duty and do something else, you will be dying every day of your lifetime. You will have nothing but conflict, regret, guilt of omissions and commissions. What was to be done was omitted, what was not to be done was committed, all of which is a living death. While you are living, you go on dying. I'll repeat all this one more time, these paragraphs. Swadharma and satisfaction. When we see someone else doing something that seems to be making the person happy, we want to do it too. But Swadharma does not work that way. It's like the grass is greener on the other side. In any given situation, in any given position, whatever is to be done by you, whatever that is appropriate for you, that alone is your karma, your dharma. This does not mean that you should not switch jobs. Both money and job satisfaction are important, but a number of other factors must be taken into account. Example is if you're an artist, try to make money with your art. Produce something that will make money, something that is good. In this way, you will have job satisfaction and money also. This is the intelligent way to live. Otherwise, you will have neither money nor satisfaction. What kind of a job is it, after all, that does not produce money? How can there be any real satisfaction in such a job? Your art will definitely be affected because being penniless, being without money, without the essentials of life, you will be an angry, frustrated person. Without the essentials of life that money provides, you will often be disgruntled. Your paintings will be angry paintings. The colors themselves will reflect your inner life. Of course, there are people who will like such paintings because they too are angry. So you may even sell some of them. So switching jobs is not, um, when it's necessary, it's necessary. So if this example, this artist, he or she is not getting enough money with his passion, then if required, yes, you take on another job because ultimately you need some money for your essentials because you're responsible for your body, you're responsible for your family. You can't say, I'm an artist and I'm going to continue to do this, whether or not people buy. That becomes foolishness then. That's not an intelligent way of living, right? So swadharma or swakarma is based on the situation you're in, the need of the hour, and your ability to recognize it. So in this verse under discussion, Krishna also said that the duty of another is definitely fraught with fear, bhayavaha, when you take it as your own. This being the case, it is better to do one's own duty, to do whatever is proper and appropriate, even if it amounts to death, than to do someone else's duty. In this way, you will have the satisfaction of knowing that at least until your death, you did what you had to do. This actually is a little um, confusing and contradictory. We will need to do a bit of manana on this. Also, if you neglect your own duty and do something else, you will be dying every day of your lifetime. You will have nothing but conflict, regret, guilt of omissions and commissions. What was to be done was omitted, what was not to be done was committed, all of which is a living death. While you are living, you go on dying. I remember Rajima saying, you cannot keep your house as a pigsty and go out and do seva. Your seva begins at home. So first keep your house in order. House in order meaning physically as well as emotionally. Then that does not again mean that you will only get stuck up at home. So that is where what Gurudev says comes in handy. He says it is like riding a bicycle. If you're too engrossed in just doing housework with respect to your family versus society, then go out and do a little bit of seva outside. Seva at home is also seva. But if you're too indulged in just going out and doing societal seva, then come back to the center. Pay attention at home. So that everybody has to find that balance. But if you neglect your own duty and you're doing something else, you will be dying every day of your lifetime. You will have nothing but conflict, regret, guilt of omissions and commissions. So let's share our thoughts and any questions if we have.
Jai
So,
Gurudev. The literal meaning of the shloka could have helped to save our old traditions and old professions, like farmer's son would have become only the farmer, blacksmith's sons would have become only blacksmith, potter's son. We would have, it could have helped to preserve the not only the culture but also so many things. But at the same time, on the contrary, when we see, when we um, feel the experiences of the people, those who are coming from that background and they are becoming IAS or they are cracking the most competitive exams and becoming um, very different from their parents' profession. Then, this was more appropriate in olden times when there was few little migration and um, little unemployment. But right now, the condition is such that both, not only both partners have to work, but also like you gave Gurudev's example that the way you balance the bicycle, you have to continue. And it is challenging to continue with the same tradition. But yes, definitely, I have seen so many examples, especially in Bangalore, where so many farmers' children they have gone to Silicon Valley in US and they have come back and continued their own father's profession uh, of farming or maybe related to agriculture. So again, even I am little, but at times I think it depends on the circumstances. If it is possible to continue with the same profession as your ancestors have, and especially when it is such precious like farming or maybe some craft or like that, then there should be the concern. Yeah. Jai Gurudev.
thank you for sharing your thoughts, Bilal. Yeah, completely agree. But then we are living in such a world which is transformed into the value system has changed to valuing money. That's the whole point. That is why it's all very telescopic, very narrow vision. When I was studying in school, it was only three professions you could choose. There was no other option. I mean, everybody else would line up either for engineering or medicine or commerce. I mean, banking jobs. Becoming a teacher would have be would was people who were not successful in either of them will end up becoming teachers, do BEd. So it is. I think it is the way our society has structured its value system. And from childhood, we are brought up in such a society that values money over passion, that values so for everyone's need, if there was sufficient, then we would not be ending up doing what we're doing. But having said that, it is quite a complex situation that we are in. It is not as simple as just following your ancestors' profession. right? Because again, each one has comes with their own swabhava. Look at Ekalavya, for instance, even in the Mahabharata. He was the son of a hunter. He was the son of a tribal. He was born in a tribal family, but he wanted to learn archery. So that was his passion. So it's a complex interaction of your swabhava, your vasanas, which determine your passion and what you have to do. But then again, bottom line is, when you do things out of a sense of with karma yoga attitude, then there is no question of being frustrated, no question of being disgruntled. So whatever job you're given at that point, you do it happily. Take it as prasada and then do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And moreover, I think it's about Prarabdha also, Brahmaraji.
Yeah.
Like Chandragupta Maurya had to be the king. So,
Mm,
although he was a shepherd's son, he became the king, right?
mm,
As picked up by Chanakya.
mm.
So, it was in his Prarabdha to be a king. So, in
Right.
the same way, it applies to everyone, each soul,
Yeah.
that it is in their Prarabdha to be that.
So we'll take this up again tomorrow. It's a big verse with a lot of explanation. We'll come back to this tomorrow. We'll stop here today. Let's all give this a thought so that we can have more manana tomorrow. It's important for us to understand our swakarma, swadharma. Yeah. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.